Log number 25. Um, this is the 12th of April, and this week has been a very unique week. I have managed to really sort out my quote unquote plate. If you haven't heard the previous log, I was emphasizing that this week will be about emptying of my plate in a metaphorical sense on the things that I had to do that was piling up as I was doing this fourth design. And one of them was selling my car, and I did manage to do that pretty early in the week, actually, to my surprise. I found a really good offer, and I went for it, and now I am able to. I've generated some income to feel comfortable in moving forward without having to think a lot about money or any of that. So that's pretty nice on that behalf. And at the same time, after I did that, on Tuesday, it was the official final day of the fourth design. I knew that last week I said this was going to be the final week and whatnot, but I wanted to correct some values of the shades and how the light was coming, and basically complete the design now that I have placed every element on it. And it went fantastic, and I'm pretty happy about it. I'm pretty happy how it came out. Very unique, as I keep saying, for every part of the compositional designs, and they really are. And soon after that, after I finished the design, I went onto the Photoshop version of the compositional part of the fifth design, and I want to say that the fifth design out of all of the designs that I've done was the one that was the most complete and the one that sort of sparked the most ideas on revisiting the previous ones. So it was a really good composition by itself, but I really wanted to add some sort of more directional storytelling that I didn't really add before, and I sort of learned it through um, the past few designs by doing it versus the behind the stages type of mindset. And I didn't really change a lot. I just added a direction that it's really specific on a story angle, which I'm really happy. But I'm ready to start drawing it this week. And I could have ended the log here, but I wanted to add how the the week that passed, that it was sort of like a break from the stonemason and a cleanup of the things that needed to be done. I've learned some useful sort of lessons on the joy of taking a step back when you're moving forward in something very methodically to really comprehend how far you've came. And by I wasn't really sitting around and not doing anything. I was obviously doing the things that needed to be done. But given they were different, I started to see how this stonemason evolved and how like my mindset kept changing in every part of it, in every design, in every section of the first arc. And primarily it was to do with, in the beginning of the first arc, I started to just write the story, write all the words, all the sentences that needed to be completed. And as soon as I finished that, I went directly to the drawing part. And initially, given that I understood that it wasn't something that I was familiar with, sort of like this method of having to write and having to draw simultaneously because I'm creating sort of like a book and a story that is interactive, I thought of, I have to drive a line in the middle. And then I decided, no, but this has to be sort of intertwined. I have to finish the first part, and or as I'm doing the design, I have to take a break and start writing more and all that. I've tried many methods, and I realized that ultimately that didn't work. But I've been doing something else altogether that made more sense to me, which was it was more aligned to the initial idea that I had of keeping things separate, but at the same time, not to the extent that I think of them separate, but I don't really work on them together. So I begin to draw, and as I'm drawing, I see the sort of gateways of how the writing story can interact with the design, and if I'm creating this section and this object or whatnot, how it's going to sort of evolve into mm, a written sort of sorry, a written um, form, or if it's going to be a musical sort of influence, or if it's going to be a paragraph, a few pager, something along the lines of adding more information. I make sort of notes, and I know that since I've been doing that, I've added so many layers in how I can interact with each composition, and each composition having its own unique ways of doing that. Because in the beginning, I was thinking, okay, this is the one or the few ways that I can do it, and I would just sort of repeat it. But now I've realized that I can do it quite extensively in a very unique manner. So if this design, I'm sort of researching a part of his life, then I'm going to introduce it in this particular, very specific way. And if I'm going to be referencing this composition in the other compositions, maybe the timeline that it's been worked on, or maybe the mindset that the stonemason had, I'm going to use, let's call it, its color into this new palette, this new story, this new composition that I'm working on. So there's a direct sort of um, correlation, and it sort of added another depth of at least in my mind of story that I didn't think before, of using of creating even in the written form or the interactive form of it in a familiar form, or a familiar sort of distinctive trait that if I use that ever after in the whole arc, you will be able to understand that it came from this specific part. So that made me quite happy, and the whole work that I've been putting, and the amount of diligence that I've been quite consistent with this is quite nice. Given that I'm working by myself this time around, I don't really have any external sort of reinforcement on how I'm doing in terms of art wise, and if what I'm doing is even worth sharing. So moving forward now, I have a few more months of designs. Usually now I need a month to finish a design, and I have two more designs and then three big ones that are a bit different. So overall five. But in my mind, I always think that it's sort of like towards the end of the tunnel. And I think the reason why I think like that, even though it really isn't, it's because my sort of narrow mindedness on how I think about things completely shattered. And after I started introducing sort of a freedom that I wouldn't naturally have in my art. I don't know if I ever talked about this in my logs, but in my journey of becoming an artist, and since a young age that I was mentored and whatnot, it was very methodical how you would do art. It was very specific. It was sort of an unwritten and an unspoken rule on how to create and how to move around an artwork, and it sort of had me baffled in my after all that was finished, and having to do your own, and having to find your quote unquote voice, your style, your whatever. And I have to say, through flow, I started to understand how to break that, but it sort of remained a little bit. but towards the end of that, it was the final sort of the final nail in the coffin, if you may. And I was really excited to move on to the next thing, even though I didn't think it would be anytime soon. I thought I was gonna really quit. Well, not really use the word as quit, but sort of disappear from the scene for a while. But old habits die, they don't die fast, don't they? And I came back and I'm doing this new theme. And at the beginning I had a bit of a struggle with the methods, the techniques and all that. But as soon as I started to really give myself the space, I evolved quite drastically. And I am at a stage where I feel like I'm doing not only the best work that I've done before, but the most representative work of who I am, and at the same time of what I'm capable of. Even though it's monochromatic, and I do miss at some points like the colors and how I could do that and all that. But I realized that you don't have to paint colors to create colors. The mentality behind colors is to add complexity or sometimes simplicity or distinguish things or add sort of like an extra layer of emotions and whatnot. But I just decided that colors wouldn't be just sparkling, vibrant pigments, but they could be words, layers of storytelling. And that really changed my game up and my mindset on how I even think about my art. And moving forward, I know that I'm not really sharing a lot of visuals, but soonish, take that with a grain of salt, soonish, I'm gonna be able to share a part of this journey and a part of this development that shows what I'm talking about a little bit more understandably, or should I say comprehensively, to a person that doesn't know what I'm doing or cannot really imagine what I'm describing. But regardless, um, this week is gonna be design number five's commencing stages. We're gonna start with the measurements and then see how that goes. Um, I didn't really make a compositional sort of section part as I did before. Maybe I will do it this time around. Perhaps I will, just to give you an understanding on how the measurements will go. I'll get on it this week and show you how the shapes of this composition are compared to the previous one. So yeah, let's see how this week's gonna treat us, and we'll see how it goes. And I'm happy to keep moving forward. And all these struggles that I said, this probably is going to be the last one, or the last straw that I'm gonna have before completely abandoning this. Didn't come to fruition, and I keep moving forward. So yeah, let's see how this week's gonna go.